Welcome to another episode of Coach's Corner, brought to you by your two favorite CX coaches, Dan McCann and Ian Hall. And if we're not your favorite, we definitely are the most passionate around CX coaching in the industry. And I'm super excited about today's episode because we have a CX specialist, James Chaffin. James?
Chafin, long
Chafin,
A.
James Chafin, who's been on Tips and Tricks, so I should have known the pronunciation of that, and a great customer of SimTrain. So welcome. And so James, not only does James do QA, Ian, and is a specialist around coaching agents, but he's also a coffee coach, which I'm really excited to talk today about the difference in that. And so James, real quick, I did some research on coffee coaching. Do you know the wine sommelier coaches people on wine? Do you know what the term is for a coffee sommelier?
Yeah, I just found out it was actually a Q grader. They are individuals trained by the Coffee Quality Institute.
I love it. So a Q grader brought to us by our QA specialist and manager, James. Maybe you can do a little bit of intro. Tell us about your passion for CX coaching and your passion for, quality in the coffee arena as well.
Sure. Well, I started with the Revenue Group back in 2017 as a customer service rep, handling mostly self-pay follow-up calls for hospital patients. And that's part of this industry that really relies on good customer experience. We want these people who might be suffering through, horrible medical problems to have the most pleasant experience they possibly can. So when they have to call in to get information about their bill, to make a payment, we want them to have the most positive experience possible. So starting from there, I knew, how important it was. And apparently that paid off because within a year of me starting, they had promoted me to the quality assurance coordinator for the healthcare customer service division of our company. And then when we started to integrate voice analytics technology into our company, I sort of found that I just understood it pretty well, and I helped the other divisions of the company develop out their auto QA scores and their automated reporting sent to their clients. So I was eventually promoted to the speech analytics coordinator for the company before finally being promoted last year to the speech and quality manager. So that was coinciding with us integrating SimTrain into our customer experience training routine.
I love it.
As far as coffee goes, I was one of those people. I just drank cheap whatever coffee was available for years. Many years ago, I worked as a nighttime security guard, so I was on the black tar coffee that is just horrible, but it keeps you awake at night, that sort of
Gotta
thing.
stay.
And after I started at Revenue Group, they gave us free coffee in the office, but it was barely drinkable. And after a few cups of that, I just said, I'm going to start making my own coffee. So I did some research. What's the best way I can make good coffee at home or in the office that is really, really good, doesn't cost too much, doesn't require, massive amounts of equipment that I have to haul into the office. And after, years and years of practice, I think I've figured things out pretty well. And when I started brewing my fancy coffee in the office, I started getting questions like, what are you doing? What do you mean? I'm making a coffee. Like, how are you making coffee? And these sorts of discussions sort of led to me doing demonstrations and sort of teaching people in the office how to improve their coffee. I made a cup of coffee for the owner of our company, and he said it was the best cup of coffee he ever had. This resulted in our coffee machines at the company being replaced out with higher tech ones that have a lot more functionality and are able to brew good coffee. And the owner now has a manual brew bar in his office.
That's awesome. And Ian, I love how James brings it back to the demonstrations and the
Yes.
training and the education for his fellow colleagues. Sounds very familiar, Ian.
Well, I want to expand on that because James, you've already taught me a lot. I am a coffee drinker. I'm not the nighttime security coffee, but I'm not at probably at the level that you are, which I'm excited for you to get into. But in talking with you for 5 minutes, I learned more about coffee than I ever knew about. And my question to start, which is a fun one, is do you remember how I learned or Simtrain learned about your coffee expertise? Because I'm gonna if you don't, I'm
Yeah,
gonna remind you.
yeah, I believe it was the fun fact that I had offered when I had done a previous sit down with
Yes.
SimTrain. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So, and more specifically, just as a fun fact, I had just come out. I was on with James. We were talking about this session, preparing for AI coaching in that discussion, and I had coincidentally just come out from my first acupuncture appointment. And I mentioned that, and James says, "Well, I actually have acupuncture needles." And I said, "Really? What are they for?" And James, take it away. Like, this is not the answer that I expected, but go ahead.
Okay, so you will find that in specialty coffee preparation, there are a lot of named techniques that have an abbreviation, RDT. They're named after someone who figured out a little trick you can do to make your coffee better.
Mm.
And in this case, acupuncture needles are used for, which is the Weiss distribution technique. It is a form of distributing espresso inside of a portafilter to make sure there are no clumps, to make sure that the water is evenly extracting as it is pressurized through the puck of coffee. A WDT tool is usually a small little handle, maybe even just a piece of cork, and it's just got a bunch of acupuncture needles sticking out of it, and then you just use it like a little rake through the coffee to
Wow.
break up clumps before you tamp it to put it in the espresso machine. So
So,
I have a bunch of acupuncture needles to replace the ones in my WDT tools whenever they break.
who knew? And as soon as we went through that, I said, "Hey, James, we're starting this podcast called Coach's Corner, and I think you're a coffee coach." And here we are. So,
Heck yeah.
uh,
So James, I went with you don't always need to be a master, right? And I think you said it's been about probably 6 years from zero to complete mastery. Has that been your time frame of becoming
Uh,
this
I,
sommelier of coffee?
I wouldn't even consider myself a master. I would consider myself above average, but compared to, the professionals, the people who compete in, say, the World Barista Championship,
Yes.
the
Yeah, that's
World
where I was
Brewers
going.
Cup,
Yep.
these are professional coffee competitions. There's a national one here in the United States and a bunch of countries, and then the winners from those national championships go to the world championships. So you can very well compete to be the best coffee brewer in the world if you really wanted to.
Yeah, and I went with my best Bill Belichick outfit today, James. And those of you who know Bill Belichick, you probably would assume he wasn't probably the best football player in his schools and on his teams growing up, but he was a good one. He didn't have to be the world's master, but he became a really great coach. And I was reading about these barista coaches, right? And the things that they need to do. Consistency was a big one, right? Playing off the judges and knowing who the judges were and having a great routine and repetition. As I was
Hmm.
reading that, it just reminded me of AI coaching and really what it takes to take QA data and coach agents in the contact center. What correlations would you make there, James, as well, for becoming a great coach of CX and coffee?
Absolutely. Technology is a huge factor in here. And when you talk about AI coaching, you're utilizing, data that you mine from various sources to create this training routine for your agents based off of like real world scenarios that they're actually handling. In the coffee industry, there are a number of deep analytical tools that are used to check the quality of the coffee that's being brewed. I own a device that's known as a refractometer, and as one of my mentors, James Hoffman, likes to say, this is a device that measures the speed of light through coffee.
Nice.
It's a little silly, but it actually tells you the percentage of dissolved solids that have been extracted out of the coffee beans into the brewed cup of coffee. And you can use this data to determine how efficiently you are brewing that coffee. Likewise, there are devices like the Agtron roast level meter. It's a infrared spectrometer that determines just how dark a roast is. There are devices that measure like the exact temperature of water coming out of an espresso portafilter. You utilize all this data to change your technique. You measure
Mhm.
with your refractometer, and if you're below what you're targeting, you're going to grind your beans a little bit finer, right? That's going to
Yeah.
change the way you extract the coffee. It's going to increase your extraction yield. So utilizing the technology that you have available is is really, really powerful in improving your coffee routine, but also just your customer service experience when you're doing things with AI.
And
Absolutely. Yeah, think about it. I think you're a new customer on intelligent coaching
yeah.
and the AI coaching application with SimTrain. What correlations would you use to really taking that same approach to your CX data?
Well, I think one of the most powerful things with the AI, the intelligent coaching, is it's really good at finding the stuff that the agents themselves don't really know about.
Yeah.
We sent out some initial rounds of intelligent coaching, and one of the feedbacks we got was, this would be helpful if I was actually missing this on the calls. I guess that agent didn't pick up on the fact that they got that assignment because they were missing that on the calls. They were so certain they were doing it on all of their calls, they just didn't notice that they did miss it.
That's
And yeah, that's something that you run into in the case of coffee. People just get so set in their ways, they don't want to listen to advice, but this technology sort of helps provide you with the empirical evidence necessary to prove your point.
So James, it's a great point on use of data, both in the coffee space and the CX space to improve performance, find those skill gaps, and then assign the exercises that are going to help you improve. And you might not even know it, right? Like you said. You also have to know your audience, right? And there's different levels of agents and their level of proficiency, and there's different levels of coffee drinkers and what they want to aspire to, right?
Mhm.
So put it in context for me, like and then maybe back into the AI coaching space. So I'm a guy who loves coffee. I have to have a cup of coffee in the morning, maybe two. I'm probably not going to get to the level of that investing, $1,000 or whatever into a coffee maker, but I want to get better. I want to get to this level. And then who knows, once I get to that level, maybe I want to go further because it's the
Mhm.
best darn cup of coffee I've ever had. So talk a little bit about how you would coach somebody like me in the coffee space and maybe a suggestion. And then if you can kind of relate that back to AI coaching, you talked about the data and maybe how that would relate.
Certainly. So one of the biggest things in training is breaking bad habits and breaking all of the preconceived notions of what is correct. And there's a lot of that in coffee, especially. People have a preconceived notion that coffee is going to be bitter sludge that needs a lot of sugar and creamer to make it taste good. I ran into this scenario once when I was making coffees for people in my office, and I made a coffee for one of our agents, and she immediately said, "Oh, I'm going to have to put sugar. I can't drink coffee without sugar." And I kept asking her, "Try it without sugar first. Try it without sugar first." Well, she dumped the sugar in it. She drank it. It was way too sweet for her. It was a naturally processed Ethiopian coffee. They don't need sugar. They're naturally sweet all by
Hmm.
themselves. You add the sugar to it, you make it kind of undrinkable. So, sometimes you need to let people have that learning experience. They make that mistake. And that's going to be definitely true in coffee when you're brewing it for yourself, when you're learning. You're going to make a lot of mistakes. You're going to pour a lot of bad cups of coffee before you get your good cup. Maybe you luck out and the first cup you pour tastes better than any cup of coffee you ever had in your life. Maybe the next cup after that tastes wrong for some reason. There's a lot of factors that can come into play that can have that effect. So that's the biggest deal is, teaching people to look beyond the boundaries that they set for themselves, the boundaries they have in their own head. This is the limit of what coffee can be. This is the limit to what my customer service skills can be. The
Hmm.
truth is it's not. They've just been convinced of that. Either they had bad managers, bad trainers in the past, maybe they've just had a bad life, bad experience, but you can show them with positive reinforcement, with positive examples, that it doesn't have to be that way. And same thing with coffee. The coffee doesn't have to be bitter sludge. It can be a wonderful, sweet, floral drink that you just never experienced before.
And I think that goes back to the AI coaching and what you and working with SimTrain allow and your work with your agents is they can have that negative experience in a safe
Hmm.
environment, right? Not
Oh,
with
yes.
not with the customer. And maybe, you don't have to dump that sugar in,
or
and drink
try
it.
it, dump
Yeah,
it
or
in
to
and
even
see
try it.
how that works, right?
Right,
Yep.
right. So
Yep.
I think that's a really interesting analogy there.
For
Yeah,
sure,
also,
we do have a lot of sims where the sim voice is very angry at our agents.
Sure.
It's helpful for training purposes.
oh yeah, create adversity, James, right? You know,
Hmm.
take a sweet coffee and dump a bunch of sugar in it and see if you want to do that again, right?
Yeah.
Now, I know there are people out there who love their sugar, the ones who go to Dunkin' and they get the original iced coffee with 50 sugars, and it's so much, there's like just sludge at the bottom of the cup. I don't know how you can handle that much sugar, let alone, all the other
But
stuff they put in it, but more
yeah.
power to you. Probably don't want to be asking me for advice with coffee, though, because I'm going to be telling you some stuff you're not going to like.
But you talked about it before. You're set in your ways. Maybe all of us are. I know I get set in my ways, and it's like
Hmm.
no, it's my way until I am with, in this case, data from a CX perspective, or in the coffee perspective, a fine Ethiopian coffee. That it's
Hmm.
like whoa, okay, now tell me more, show me more, let me try more to see if I can get better, get a better cup of coffee, get a better, here's what I need to improve upon because the data that I wasn't even aware of shows that I'm not hitting that empathy score or whatever it might be, and I need help there. So
Yep.
it's a really good analogy.
A great coach is one that helps people break through barriers, right? And it's the mental and physical barriers that they get them to the next level to optimize performance. So it's great correlation between, teaching people about coffee, educating them, becoming a master, James. And I love how you humbly say, hey, and then talk about reflectometers. And I'm not a master, right? But then being able to teach people about the impact, right, and the impact they can make. One of the things I love when SimTrain tells me all the time in the AI feedback, it's like, hey Dan, you need to enunciate and pronounce people's names better. And James, you saw that earlier today on today's episode. SimTrain
Yep.
reminds me of that all the time. Any
Yeah.
Anything you can advise, QA leaders, CX leaders, whether on the coaching side or on the quality side, that they should really be thinking about on optimizing, agent performance, whether it's that technology and some of the things that you use either on your QA or even from the coffee side, but things that you can tell your peers out there.
Oh, absolutely. Like leverage every data that you have available. And I kind of look at this, if you're using SimTrain and you don't have a voice analytics provider, what are you doing, right? Voice analytics providers are super useful in the call center space. You can pull so much useful data, not just for training purposes, but for compliance purposes, for marketing purposes, for client relation purposes. Like it's just so useful. So having the tools on hand that really allow you to get the most out of SimTrain and intelligent coaching is just super helpful. Not only having the tools, spending the time necessary to learn how to get the most out of them. So don't just, say, oh, we have this, we're good. No, like keep
Right.
looking, look at, the new tech as it comes out, look at the releases because SimTrain's always releasing releases, right? You guys put up a new update like what, every couple of months or so, and there are new
Every
features
couple of
always
weeks.
every
Couple
couple
weeks,
of
yeah.
weeks, every couple of
Yeah.
weeks. Yeah, something new's coming out. Same thing in the coffee world. There's all these new types of brewers. We're now into the world of zero bypass brewers, boutique paper filters that have different drawdown rates. We're getting into the world of water recipes where adjusting the specific amounts of calcium, magnesium, sodium in the water actually affects the final quality of the coffee itself. Me personally, I do have a reverse osmosis water filter that strips out all minerals, and then I remineralize the water to be the exact pH and dissolved solid content that makes it ideal for brewing coffee. So I know what that's all about. You're always looking for that new little bit of tech to push that quality forward. Keep up to date. Set the notifications. Subscribe to newsletters, get that information coming out, and once you see it, that's when you brainstorm, how am I going to get the most out of this? How am I going to use this to make, our company a better company, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and that data-driven approach for AI coaching is very much what SimTrain's all about. As a matter of fact, we follow an open architecture with our solutions, so we can integrate with whatever our customers bring to the table, from voice analytics or QA tools, AQA, and we can extract that data to create the best possible sims as well as the best possible coaching and training plans as well. Hey, James, I know that you're a coffee coach because of a fun fact, right? And that you
Okay.
shared. So outside of your passion around coffee, do you have another fun fact that you'd like to share with our audience today?
I mean, I do virtual reality flight simulation. That's another hobby I do.
Nice. I love it. I
you
love it.
know, simulating things, simulating experiences to learn new skills. I guess that's just part of who I am.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's
Hey,
awesome.
how about favorite book or movie, James?
Oh gosh, you're really asking for that's a hard ask. Maybe not my favorite movie, but in terms of one that always sticks in my head as like being very significant to where it left a severe mark on my life. Andrei Tarkovsky's Stalker. It is
Nice.
a Russian language science fiction movie filmed in the former Soviet Union in 1979. And it's very long and slow and meditative, but it is one of the best movies ever made.
Wow.
That is, my mother-in-law introduced me to a movie called Brazil. You ever heard of that?
Also, one of my favorites.
Wow.
Excellent.
Oh, nice. I thought when you were talking about Stalker, I'm like, that sounds like Brazil. That's the exact movie. Ian, very long, drawn out
Okay.
movie. Every one of her offspring refused to watch it, gave her heck on it. And I was dating her daughter at the time. So she said, Dan, I want you to watch this movie with me. You're going to love it. It's called Brazil. And guess what? I loved it because I was dating her daughter and I didn't want her mother, my future mother-in-law, to think down on me. But I did, James, I did tell people on prior episodes, I told my mother-in-law and father-in-law they had to go watch Pulp Fiction, best movie of all time. And they told my wife to break up with me after they left.
Yep. Yep. Terry Gilliam, good director.
Heck yeah.
Nice.
Excellent. James, lots to learn from you, James. We appreciate you sharing with our audience today. Love the impact you're making on the CX stack and in the world of coffee and those connoisseurs that are out there as well.
Thanks, James. Looking forward
Most
to
welcome.
having a cup of your brewed coffee one of
Me
these.
too.
One of these days, I got to update my mobile setup to where I
Okay.
can actually go and bring my hand
Nice.
grinder and everything and make good coffee wherever I go.
And we'll come to you. We'll
Yeah,
we'll
yeah, yeah,
we'll
yeah,
come to you for a good
yeah.
cup of coffee
Yeah.
like that too. We look
Absolutely.
forward to it, James. Thanks
All
for
right.
joining us.
Thanks,
Most
James.
welcome.
Ian,
Thank you.
till next time.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Y'all take care.
Bye,
Thank you.
James.
Bye,
Bye
James.
bye.